Hi everyone, and welcome to this Kiuwan webinar today. We're going to give it about 3 minutes to let people join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, it seems like we've had a few people join, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining once again. In today's webinar, we're going to be diving deep into why continuous integration is essential for development teams across industries, as well as the broad benefits that can be attained by adding security directly into your development pipeline. We have a very special demonstration in the second half of our webinar. This will be the first preview of the Travis CI and Kiuwan integration. This brand new approach enables a completely seamless development approach in which teams can take advantage of Kiuwan's extensive benefits alongside the simplicity and ease of use that is empowered by the Travis CI tool. So to get started, my name is Alexander Goodwin, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager for Kiuwan. And we'll also be joined later in the presentation by Montana Mendy from Travis CI, who is the lead solutions engineer. Today, we will be discussing the challenges that exist for organizations that are attempting to develop applications from an operational perspective, as well as diving into some of the key reasons why security is such an essential aspect of the development process. Following that, Montana will be walking us through the brand new Travis CI and Kiuwan integration to show us how it can further enhance your development operations and drive a more effective user experience for your development teams and more secure and higher quality applications for your end users. So to get started, let's take a look at the development industry and why CI/CD is essential. So we talk a lot we talk to a lot of the leading organizations around the globe on a daily basis, and we look at the challenges that they're facing and try to help them identify solutions. From these discussions and our solutions experts' extensive knowledge, we have identified a range of key concerns. I'll drop back because I didn't show you guys this, but these are sort of the four main issues that we were going to be talking about today. But then from here, there's a subset of issues within those, right? So primarily these look like four key aspects. So the first being keeping pace with innovation, organizational culture, customer experience, and data privacy. They all really impact the way that the development process operates and affect how the end products are created. And obviously security and continuous integration plays into that heavily. So we'll start by discussing each of these challenges and then dive into how these solutions can help these specific difficulties. So primarily keeping pace with innovation. So the digital transformation has clearly arrived, heavily accelerated by COVID, obviously, and people just changing the way that they work, the way that they live, the way that they purchase things, which has obviously really impacted development organizations and development culture in general. And this change just really isn't going anywhere. But a lot of companies are still struggling to bring their systems and processes into the 21st century. We commonly see this in banking and finance, although these organizations demand the highest levels of security, right? We really don't want customers or end user information to be accessible to malactors. They're far too often using applications and infrastructures that are simply way below what should be expected for these applications. So when we're dealing with outdated technology, this is obviously a huge concern. Legacy systems have become and continue to be a key target for bad actors, and end users often can't locate key information, and organizations end up losing time and money due to manual processes and poor decision making. And this is all often a result of a lack of collaboration within the development process and within corporate leadership, which ultimately leads to an imbalance in the goals of the development process. It's often the case that organizations have the goal of creating effective products for the end users, with the organization measuring success based purely on that user experience. For these organizations, their perception aligns with preventing any negative customer experience, and they want their users to have a consistent experience. But this can be disrupted by changing the process to any degree, including modernizing. It often becomes the case that these systems are further developed to improve the customer experience without consideration of other aspects. In fact, a recent McKinsey study found that 45% of digital transformation projects deliver lower returns than anticipated, as in they don't significantly improve the application or process to the point that there can be a measurable benefit from an ROI perspective. And in fact, there's a 45% chance that the average digital transformation project will deliver less profit than expected. And so obviously there's some key concerns there. But successful transformation projects really require the following: clear priorities with a direct link to measurable business goals, a mature agile development practice, and investments in the right talent and priorities. A Gartner analyst recently said it best by saying, it's about using technology to create new business models, revenue streams, and products that change things in your industry. It's about doing old things in new ways. And we know that this applies to development as well. Even with a solid set of priorities and skillful people on board, executives can find it difficult to sustain their focus on digital enablement. The focus has to be valued at the top of the organization. In the aforementioned McKinsey study, expectation beating performance was 1.5 times more likely when survey respondents said that the digital transformation had been a top priority for the company's senior leadership. And so when we look at organizations, taking the banking and finance sector as an example, this really has to be something that comes from the top of the decision-making chain as much as it is advocated for by the development teams. And so it's a holistic and comprehensive view that is really needed to change the industry and change their applications to meet the new demands. But companies also have to reserve sufficient funds for these digital transformations. Respondents who said that their companies had allocated operating expenditures towards the digital transformation were 1.3 times more likely to say that the transformation had surpassed expectations. So organizations have to be able to access the highest level of quality control, security, and efficiency tools to reduce the friction for their development teams as they seek to empower modernized and digitally transformed applications and processes. And so we really need to focus on empowering key improvements for these teams by implementing tools that really support that. And so without investing in the best in breed solutions, leaders should be prepared for longer timelines and increased challenges. So moving on, organizational culture and process efficiency. Technology is just one facet of a very complex infrastructure that is required to create high quality applications. Today's development teams rely on processes and organizational structures that allow them to quickly adapt to the constant change and shifting focus in the marketplace. But they have to move away from basic innovation and instead zoom in on enhancing the user experience to respond to the immediate needs of their customers. And so when we talk about this, we're really focusing on being agile and being able to make changes quickly, roll out new features as soon as that they're needed and demanded by the audience. Every person on the team should understand that the software development team is moving really fast and the culture needs to quickly learn and adapt to be creative as well. The dialogue has to become more about working together and collaborating to solve a high stakes problem. And it's not just at the team level, but organizationally. Teams need to access softwares and solutions that empower them to collaborate effectively, whether this is a CI solution, a testing toolkit, or a deployment infrastructure. And while on the surface it seems simple, changing extensive processes and eliminating silos is often one of the biggest challenges for software developers and organizations in general. In order to maximize the value of new tech initiatives, organizational culture has to align with strategy. Without this alignment, it becomes impossible to develop organization-wide data literacy or to become truly customer-centric. The challenge here is it has to come from the top. It is essential for CIOs and CTOs to start working with their implementation teams to manage which technology investments and structure change needs to happen to support that overall cultural change. And 55% of 271 technology leaders that were surveyed admit that the singular challenge to successful innovations is getting contributors and senior leadership on board. And this is something that we will understand from our experience. Often there's a lot of bureaucracy in the way that can kind of slow down these processes. And people at the implementation and development level are very keen to start making these changes and move forward, but it might not fit into the overall organizational strategy. And so from this perspective, it's really clear that company culture is a significant barrier to entry for teams as they aim to improve their processes and the output of the development lifecycle. It's essential for teams to really focus on processes and tool sets that can help them improve how seamless their development flow is and allow them to collaborate more. And those are things that are really baked into Travis CI and Kiuwan. The ability to collaborate and work across the cloud to speed up and smooth over those processes in a more efficient manner. And moving on from there, we can look now at customer experience. And so we often see this as being the key focus for development. But what is often ignored as part of this is the key role of security and privacy. It's critical that companies develop a deep understanding of the market and the importance of CI/CD as well as its role within the customer experience. And customer experience really just hinges on developing a data-driven strategy that incorporates the role of key attributes that consumers are searching for, which obviously includes securing, storing, and surfacing insights to the right decision makers at the right time. So it's essential for teams to begin adopting a systematic approach that helps them to build improved customer experiences that really are considerate of their customers and not just internalized sort of ideas. Quality assurance plays a big part of this. The problem of not reviewing code, suppressing errors, or rushing projects can create unnecessary and dangerous bugs in deployed applications. I mean, there are countless examples from just this year alone that have led to really significant data breaches, hacks, or other issues, and obviously significant brand damage as well. So following a formal QA process that also embraces industry-leading solutions can help to circumvent some of the key issues created by complex applications that can be rushed to market. 1/3 of customers will leave a brand that they are loyal to after just one negative experience. So as a result of this, gone are the days of merely verifying software and its build quality against your internal technical requirements. A piece of code might function as specified, but in the hands of the user, it could be confusing, irritating, or open that user up to risk as well. So what's needed is a shift in mindset towards validating application quality and security throughout the entire development and testing process. Organizations need to stop concentrating solely on whether a piece of software works or not. In its place, they have to implement a way of testing that understands how a user interacts with the software, how the user will experience the software, and how secure the user will be when they're using the software. And so this means quickly identifying bugs, errors, and problems within the application and user interface before the application can even have the opportunity to provide the customer with a negative experience. It's really making sure that before an application is ever deployed, we are thoroughly examining it and making sure that we're ticking every single one of our boxes and protecting the customer and ensuring that they have a high quality user experience. But the problem is that a lot of organizations have a drawn out development workflow that doesn't pivot quickly enough to embrace the needs of the customers, which are constantly changing. Again, we've seen so many challenges this year with customers having their data exposed. So now within that entire consideration of using an application, there's always the thought that their data might be at risk. And so people need to feel confident enough to use your applications and feel secure when using them. And so in order to prevent that, we really have to ensure that security and quality comes in much earlier within the process. And so if the end users are demanding high levels of usability or consistently drop off the application as a result of a poor experience, they can obviously have a long-term negative impact and negative consideration towards the product. So being able to leverage our agile development practices via seamless collaborative solutions really changes the game for development teams and enables them to coordinate in a way which is, which allows them to develop more effective applications and react to customers' demands really quickly. And then finally, we kind of alluded to it previously, but security and data privacy are just so critical. They are definitely a big part of the customer experience, but they're so significant that they stand alone from that as well. With the constant foray of data leaks over the past 12 months, including Park Mobile, which impacted 21 million users, Twitch, which impacted 5 billion users, and Planned Parenthood, which impacted 400,000 users, it's not surprising that an array of application users of all types are heavily concerned about the impacts of having their data exposed in an attack. And if we look at these three companies as examples, they all have sensitive data in different ways. The Twitch data pertain to the actual streamer's personal information, including how much income they made, which obviously is a significant concern. Planned Parenthood, we can all understand that people don't want their medical records readily available on the internet. And Park Mobile, having access to people's number plates, where they're parking, data like that can be really damaging. And so it's really critical that we are not enabling applications to ever put customers' data at risk from that perspective. And it's often the case that applications that contain a lot of personal data are the ones that are attacked the most. So clearly they have to be the most secure. When the output value is as valuable as highly private data, and the time and effort to access the data by nefarious means can therefore be worthwhile. Hackers are considerate of ROI too, just as any development organization is as well. But far too often, data privacy, user security are afterthoughts of the development process. They're layers that are added on at the final stage to give the application some form of protection and not thought of as a central part throughout the entire development process. So the combination of a changing regulatory landscape as it pertains to things like HIPAA, PCI, DSS, CCPA, or GDPR makes it a landscape that is filled with landmines for development organizations. So managing data privacy and user security should start by understanding the rules and regulations that exist, but also, really evaluating the almost like personal rules and considerations that the end user might have. So we have these regulations, but then it's also important to consider how the users are feeling about their personal information as well. And so from this perspective, it's essential to embrace an active security approach that builds security into the CI and CD process. Big data, along with widespread cloud adoption and a growing embrace of IoT solutions, has made it impossible to detect unsecured endpoints and vulnerabilities without the use of active monitoring tools. Static analysis tools need to be executed consistently against code bases to identify any specific vulnerabilities, and they need to use the key standards that are outlined by OWASP and CWE. We just got the updated list for 2021. A lot of vulnerabilities have moved up in the list, and obviously we need to make sure that we're being considerate of those and not putting to the side some of the older vulnerabilities that are less relevant, but just focusing more on the ones that have become more pernicious, especially over this year. And so integrating security into the development process, it really helps to ensure that we're significantly reducing the risk of releasing vulnerable code, and we're not slowing down or reducing efficiency within the development cycle. So with all that said, it's clear that the challenges that development teams are facing are significant, and it's absolutely essential that the application development process leverages an effective CI/CD tool that helps teams to collaborate and manage deployments in a targeted, efficient, and effective manner that can support the end user, but also ensure that all of these key standards that we're considerate of, including security and usability, are really the central focus within the development cycle. So within this, teams have to ensure that security is built in and that applications are developed with that at the heart. And so we're really excited today to exclusively preview the new integration between Travis CI and Kiuwan. And this will really highlight the efficacy of the collaborative solution and demonstrate how easy it can be for your development team to improve their process while leveraging these tools to do it. So with that said, I'll pass it over to Montana Mendy, the lead solutions engineer at Travis CI and an expert in the CI/CD space. So without further ado, I will change the presenter to Montana and he can take over. Montana, I believe you're still muted.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Let me get started again. Travis has historically supported coverage analyzers and or static analyzers using in what we called a process called stages. And we can now proudly say to have Kiuwan a part of that family. While Travis by osmosis is verbose in some cases, you'll want to see the nuances and flaws, most of the cases on a more granular level. This is what I'll be demonstrating today with Kiuwan. While this is building, I want to go over a couple things. So let's trigger a build right here quick. So we are going to trigger a build. And we're going to call it Kiuwan talk. All right, this is going to take a minute. Okay, so right now Travis CI is spinning up Docker, spinning up the VM environment, a couple of other things. Let's head on over to the GitHub repository that I've created and take you step by step in every process of what the YAML file is doing. So this is a TypeScript project, so we're going to say language Java. We're going to skip some of the install processes. And this is the part you're going to want to look at. We're going to wget. We could have used curl, but in this case, we use wget. Kiuwan, we're going to be grabbing the local analyzer, unzipping the local analyzer, and then obviously running it. And these two things right here will be important. The Kiuwan user, the Kiuwan pass, those are environment variables. So these two things you may forget about in your installation process, but it is very, very important to remember that you must set those or you will get kicked back an error. All right, let's see how our build is doing. Looks like it's doing pretty well, actually. Looks like Kiuwan has been invoked. Yep, Kiuwan has been invoked, folks. And you'll see the heap size of the VM settings. What we're using was OpenJDK server with the VM. So it's basically right now scanning the TypeScript project that I have. And what this is going to do after it gets done scanning, it's going to send me an email and either tell me what errors do I have or how perfect my code just is, which probably isn't perfect at all. And one thing to actually remember while building this, sometimes people forget Travis CI is running a Linux box essentially. So you have mostly all of the normal, say, Ubuntu or Arch install processes that any other end user would have. So you can make things more verbose. It's just really how you set up your .travis YAML. And after this, there definitely will be a GitHub repository with doing that as it regards into Kiuwan. Once the build is through, I will be getting a confirmation email from the Jelly service, and then we'll take a look at the Kiuwan GUI. This will be about another 35, 40 seconds, folks. And actually, one thing else to note, the distro that I'm currently using is Focal. This also, I have had success with Trusty, which is a little weird. But that being said, you should be using Focal. And here we go, just to finish it off. So we have the post process started, post processes finished, and it's obviously telling me now it's going to retrieve the result, and hopefully I should see an email in my inbox. So here is one that I ran earlier. Give that a minute. Refresh. Check out the analyses. Okay, so obviously you can tell I've made this to have a really high risk index. That is because obviously I want to see how granular Kiuwan can go. Now keep in mind that this is Kiuwan baseline. So this is going to tell us how many lines of code my project had, useful lines of code, files, complexity, portability, efficiency, maintainability, and reliability. And I think this fits right into the puzzle of security, as Alexander was talking about. And this is how really easy it is to integrate Kiuwan and Travis. So after this, there will be a link provided to GitHub repository so you can try it yourself on your own projects. So I'm proud to say that this is officially doable, and yeah, open doors. So I think that's it for the demo. And I hope you really enjoyed it, and I hope you find use of it. Be sure to be on the lookout for the GitHub repository so you can try this yourself. And yeah, I appreciate you watching.
Perfect, and thank you so much for Montana for that great demonstration. And as he mentioned, we'll have a post tomorrow going up on the Kiuwan website that will include all of the information from the GitHub repository, as well as a link to the repository so you can go ahead and replicate this yourself. But I really think that what Montana's demonstration showed is that it is essential for those, it's an essential solution for those that are already using Travis CI, and it could be hugely beneficial to those that are using Kiuwan already as well, or anyone that is thinking about using either tool, because it really is a very seamless and easy to use process. I mean, that demonstration lasted all of 10 minutes, and Montana effectively ran that from start to finish and showed you just how simple it can be. And so when we're thinking about security and wanting to ensure that it is as small a roadblock as possible to the development process, this is just really a great way to do it. So now that we've seen the solution in action, let's take a look at how this solution addresses some of the challenges that we addressed earlier. So the first challenge we mentioned was keeping pace with innovation. And so with Travis CI and Kiuwan, users can really improve the efficiency of their development process and increase the level of agility that their organization can achieve. Travis CI CD is very easy to use. It's incredibly flexible and very user-friendly. And that reduces setup and testing time for projects, even allowing teams to run jobs in parallel to reduce any potential blockages. With this simple integration into Kiuwan, teams can benefit from calling the Kiuwan solution from inside of Travis CI and quickly run scans and access results to enable the consistent flow of the development process. Users can access code quality and deploy to cloud services rapidly and ensure that they are keeping pace with customer demands. Moving on to organizational culture, Travis CI enables teams to work together to sync their projects and start building together, and teams can efficiently develop and test in minutes. Because TCI is an out-of-the-box solution, it enables simple management and maintenance after the setup is completed. This easy integration with Kiuwan can assist your team in enhancing the organizational culture around security and static application security testing. And TCI supports a wider comprehension of the development process, centering the toolkit into a singular development environment that helps teams to work together more efficiently. And matching up into that, Kiuwan obviously operates both in the cloud and locally. And so that really supports teams as they try to embrace security and put that at the center of the development process, because it enables all of the stakeholders to have clear visibility and the ability to collaborate and communicate about any risks or needs for remediation. Thirdly, customer experience. So code quality is an essential facet of ensuring an effective customer experience. Without efficiently designing applications, user experience will continue to be a detrimental aspect of the application and can ultimately lead to loss of customers. So with Kiuwan QA alongside the security assessment tools, teams can build a holistic application that is secure, easy to use, and safe. Obviously, all good things. And then finally, data privacy. So by building security into the development process and embracing a collaborative process that checks and remediates vulnerabilities in real time with the assistance of Travis CI and Kiuwan, you can ensure that your customers' data is always in safe hands. And as we talked about earlier, obviously there are a lot of risks in the marketplace right now, and many challenges whenever anyone is using an application. There are always hackers and bad actors in the background trying to gain access to your data or access to your application as well. And so when we want to look at mitigating these risks, these two solutions are really a great way to do that. And as we demonstrated today, the collaborative approach, when they work together, is hugely beneficial and definitely something that any development team should look into. So with that said, that is all of the content that we have for you today. However, we do have some time now to take some questions from the audience. And so if you do have any questions that you'd like to submit, you can go ahead and do that using the questions tab within the webinar, and we'll see those and answer them. So we'll take questions for about 5 minutes and then we'll wrap up. So Montana, I actually have a question for you here. When will the repository be available and what languages does it support?
So the repository will be available tomorrow, and with the languages, it supports all languages that Travis CI does, which is 30 plus. And with that being said, I will be adding 1 or 2 more demos within that repository with what you've seen today. So you can kind of get a vibe on how to switch languages, mix and match. So it's kind of really a step-by-step process. So
that's great. And so, one other thing that we sort of maybe didn't touch on, but perhaps you can help us out with this. Obviously, a lot of our prospective audience might know a little bit about Kiuwan, but I'm not sure how much everyone here knows about Travis CI. So can you maybe just give us a quick overview of what Travis CI can be used for and why it's so much better than some of the competitors in the market?
Oh, absolutely. Well, Travis is a hosted continuous integration tool. Obviously, used to build and test software. It's hosted on GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, Assembler. And of course, we have our enterprise edition. I think the reason some of the competitors, some people look to Travis versus some of the competitors, not to name any names, they have their dependencies on a server, which in some cases on their own server. So in some cases that can bog down workflows, pipelines, and obviously some of these other CI places have their own plugins, which go directly to your own pipeline, again, which bogs down the service. Travis CI is a hosted solution in one use case. So we go out and fetch them from, PPAs from Ubuntu, wget, curl, other places like that, and we can integrate that into our builds, which makes Travis CI in some cases, most of the cases, a lot cheaper and a lot more efficient when it comes to build times.
That's great, really helpful to know. Okay, that's perfect. So that seems like all of the questions we have for right now, but I did want to ask everyone to participate in the poll that you'll see on your screen as well. Just take a couple seconds to answer some of those questions. That will really help us out. But outside of that, we have some contact information for you here. Feel free to reach out to either of these email addresses if you are interested, or go ahead and visit the either website, so travisci.com and Kiuwan.com. As Montana mentioned, that repository will be available tomorrow. So if you want to go ahead and use this solution, you can get started as soon as then. And we will also be pushing out a blog tomorrow that highlights how to use this approach and the benefits that you can attain by doing so. And so outside of that, I'd like to thank Montana for presenting today. Your presentation was very helpful and extremely informative. And I'd like to thank everyone that is attending for taking the time to join our webinar. And that's that. So thank you very much for joining, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you everyone for completing the polls, and that's everything we have for you today. Thanks again.